Alright, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to another deck profile. I put out a poll asking which color I should post next, and it looks like Clive won. Clive is probably my newest monocolor deck. Historically, I've had a hard time finding a red commander that I liked. Coming from mono blue, the red card advantage is very temporary and very lackluster, so I always feel not confident playing mono red if I sit down at a pod. However, Clive has changed this. So Clive is a 6 mana creature that cares about your devotion. So if you've got devotion, if you're not familiar with Magic, is essentially, if you were to look at Clive here, you can see that he's got 2 mana symbols. Your devotion is how many of these symbols do you have on your battlefield. So my deck is built around trying to get as many of these red mana symbols as possible onto my field. And then what happens is I'm going to discard my hand and then draw cards equal to my devotion. Discarding your hand, if you build around it, is very good. But what's good about this is usually you're drawing more cards than you're discarding. So generally, I'm not going to cast Clive until I can go net positive in card advantage, which means if I have 4 cards in my hand, and I know if I cast Clive, I'm going to draw 6 cards, I'm going to go for that because my deck has cards in here like Underworld Breach, which is built around playing out of my graveyard. The positive of this as well is I play against mill decks, most notably Mothman is pretty common. So usually if people are milling me, that's actually a good thing because I want that. The only downside is I haven't found a card that will recur Underworld Breach if that gets milled. So that is kind of a downside. If you know of a card that can recur that, then that would be awesome. But getting into the deck, so Clive also has another ability where you can pay 6 mana and flip him. And he turns into a 9/9 Saga creature. And his first mode essentially is he's going to fight something. So he's going to remove a creature, which is good. But I've built around to abuse his second and third abilities, which each time you trigger them, you're going to get 4 red mana. And if you can do both of these in a row or in the same turn, that's essentially 8 mana right there. And then he flips back over, and then you can discard and draw a whole new hand again. So I've never found a red commander that draws so many cards. Like, I've almost decked out a couple times. Clive is just incredible at drawing cards. The downside I found out last week, though, if you play against like a Nekuzar deck or someone playing Spiteful Visions or like Shieldred, you're basically kill yourself turbo. So trying to get around that is kind of interesting. So I'll start with the mana base as per usual. So this one I run just 2 MDFCs, the Sundering Eruption and Shatterskull. Shatterskull, I like literally never use that. I'm sure there is a use for it, but it's never really come up. It always feels really bad to do that. Sundering Eruption's actually kind of awesome for having creatures without flying can't block for the turn. But destroying a land is also nice because honestly, I have no shame. I will blow up lands. Like, I don't, like, coming from Yu-Gi-Oh, like, unless you're literally locking me out of the game, like, everything else seems fine compared to Yu-Gi-Oh. So, I have no problem destroying a land here or there. It also counters my own decks because when I play, sometimes I like to play pods of my own decks and just to like get a feel for them. Like, I essentially just play by myself. And being able to blow up my own Nykthos is usually pretty good. Forgotten Cave is just a free cycle. I will take drawing cards as often as I can. So it just seems kind of like an auto-include. Nykthos, this is in all my monocolor decks. I think except for my mono green because it just spits out lands already, no problem. But when I get another copy of this, it's going in there. Arena of Glory is a glorious card. I don't know how else to describe it. Being able to exert it and use the mana So you pay a red, tap it, and you get 2 red mana, and if you use it on a creature, it gets haste. What's nice is you can split this and use both of those on like 2 different creatures and essentially give 2 creatures haste. And another build around in the deck is Valakut, the Molten Pinnacle. So he enters tapped, which sucks, so you kind of want to draw him early. But when a mountain enters under your control, if you control at least 5 other mountains, this thing's going to start dealing 3 damage to either creatures or players. Being able to lightning bolt from your land is so good. The downside, though, is you literally have to wait until like turn 7. Thankfully, this deck is built to go into like turn 10, turn 11. Sometimes it goes off a little bit before then, so I think I still have to fine-tune it for the pod. But if you're playing like competitive or like bracket 4, this is probably way too slow. And then the rest are just mountains. So you'll notice I've got a good chunk of snow-covered mountains. I also run a Pokemon energy for one of them. The table's fine with that. It's just kind of cute, I guess. So I'm still getting more snow-covered mountains, but a hidden commander in the deck is a card called Glacial Crevices. This is a very old card from Ice Age, I believe, and you can pay 0, sacrifice a snow-covered mountain, and essentially fog for the turn. It's like the only red fog that I could find, and I think it's like under $1 for this. There was like $1 for this card, so I just thought it was really unique and kind of funny. I've played it a couple times now, and my opponents had to get rid of it because they had no way to kill me otherwise. So this deck wants a lot of like ways to ramp out your basic lands, so like Solemn Simulacrum, Wayfarer's Bauble. There's like the new one, that makes like a lander token. There's so many ways to ramp basics in red, actually, so I might look at incorporating more of that. The downside, though, is there's not very many ways to tutor enchantments in red. If they are, it's like, gamble, and then you've got a chance of discarding it. So, yeah, I don't see it as often as I'd like, but I do build around it, which I just find really funny. So, I wanted to talk about that first. And then the rest are just mountains. So, anyways, I will stop talking about the basics, and I believe we're going to get into our instance first. So the newest card I literally swapped in last week, Chaos Warp. Like I said, I came across a Nekuzar deck, and they had, I think it's called like Spiteful Visions. You get dealt a damage every single time you draw a card, which this deck is drawing a lot of cards. So I basically died after like 2 turns. I did not have Chaos Warp in the deck. Chaos Warp's like the only way to hit enchantments in red, so unless you guys got any other cards that can hit enchantments, please let me know. But I hate running Chaos Warp. Just 3 mana to get rid of a single thing is awful, but I have to now, like, don't blame me. Next I've got Flare of Duplication. These are just like duplicate spells. Reverberate. These are cards you want to play in red because being able to like copy Unexpected Windfall or like Thrill of Possibility, even Jessica's Will, is so good. And then all you got to do is just sacrifice any of your non-token creatures, which half the time is Clive, because he'll just sit out on the battlefield, and I need a way to re-trigger his ETB fast, so you can just sack him, and then if you have the mana, you can recast him, which this deck usually can. It's quite explosive with Nykthos and the Devotion, as well as, when I get to it, but Mana Geyser is like an insane card. I was telling the table, like, we should ban this card for sure, because in a fucking 9-player pod, 8-player pod, like, I've gotten like 40 mana from this card, like 50 mana. It is like, I'm sure the table is sick of seeing me just go, all right, Mana Geyser, and then you just start casting Clive. You spit out your hand first, cast Clive, you draw a whole new hand, you just keep going, and this deck can take turns that are like a few minutes, I swear. So just a warning. Zoyoa's Justice is a very good card in this deck. Being able to hit your own stuff as well is also really nice. And I believe, according to my knowledge, if you hit your own commander, which I do, and you zone him, you still get to discover equal to the mana value. So that's quite nice. Delayed Blast Fireball is, you don't like drawing it, but if you hit it off of like Jessica's Will or something, it's really good. I do run a very small like Exile Matters package in this deck just to give it some identity. Otherwise, Mono Red Devotion is a very generic archetype. So I have a deck building episode coming out where I talk about that more. Burnout is a really good card. It counters blue counterspells, which like white has a couple counterspells. I know black and red have like one or two, but mostly you're just countering the blue ones, and you also get to draw a card off of it, which is very good. If it says draw a card, I'm like 80% chance of putting it in my deck. So Fire Prophecy is what I run over a Braid, because if you get hit with a Drannith Magistrate, which is not very often, but there is one deck I play against with it, and you just at least want an option in the deck to be able to hit it for 3 damage. I like this over a Braid because I don't care too much about hitting the artifacts. I more so care about being able to draw a card. So, which plays even more into Spiteful Visions. I totally get that. But I'm stubborn. I have an addiction to drawing cards. So onto the sorceries. So I run Into the Fire because guess what? It draws me cards +1, but it can also deal 2 damage to stuff. It also hits battles, which I play 1 or 2 battles, so that can be kind of nice. Mizium Mortars is like one of my only board wipes. This deck is more so trying to be the problem rather than get rid of the problem, so Mizium Mortars just doesn't hit my stuff, which I like. Mana Geyser, like I was saying, is probably one of the most broken cards in the deck for my pod, because even playing against, I swear, even playing against 3 people, like a 3-player pod, sorry, so you're only having 2 opponents, you can still get like, on turn 7, you still get like 15, 16 mana, which is just insane. Like this card should, I don't know, they should definitely do something about this. Or maybe not, like, because honestly, red, if you have like Treasonous Ogre, Mana Geyser, like you can play everything. Faithless Looting, I know people don't like this artwork. I totally get it. It's just the only one I had. Hit the Motherlode is a really awesome card. 7 mana to discover for 10. And then you get to make treasures equal to the difference of the spell you cast if it's less than 10. So it's basically just like ramp and just free card advantage. This one I haven't gotten to play yet, but I just threw it in. By Force, destroy X target artifacts for red and an X. We had another player at the table that was talking about this very highly, and he played it, and he played it for like X equals 4 and just hit like so much good stuff. There's always artifacts out of my table, so By Force I think is going to be very good. I'm a little skeptical. Oh my gosh, skeptical of it. But I just wanted to give it a try. I'm always trying at least like 1 or 2 new cards, so this is kind of one of those right now. Onto the artifacts. So we've got Basilisk Collar. This combos with Heartless Hidetsugu because he deals damage to each player equal to half their life total rounded down. You equip this to him and you just gain a whole bunch of life. So that's kind of how I haven't really solved life gain in mono red, but that's like a step towards it, is those 2 together. The Death Touch is kind of whatever. Ruby Medallion, just auto include. Any medallion is an auto include in its decks, really. So just reduces all of your red spells by 1, which is very good because it doesn't affect your opponents either. So Thought Vessel, this is my way to have no maximum hand size, because a lot of times with Clive, I'm discarding my hand and drawing 9, 10 cards, and you just honestly, like, there is an argument to not have a max hand size just so you can make your Underworld Breach even stronger, or like your graveyard. So I will say that, but I want my just the one card in the deck that can do that, honestly. Wayfarer's Bauble is just good because it gets me a snow-covered mountain, which fuels my Glacial Crevice, which, that without context, that is a hilarious name. Fire Diamond, just a mana rock that makes red, and I want to use my Arcane Signets in better decks, so yeah, Fire Diamond is allocated here. Venser's Journal is another no max hand size, and it also gives me life equal to my hand size. So a lot of times it's like I'm gaining 9-10 life each turn, and it also keeps me with a no max hand size. So it gives me life, and it allows me to have an unlimited hand, so pretty good. But if you're playing like competitive, this might also be too slow. It also, the downside with artifacts is a lot of them don't add to your devotion, so you want to keep that in mind, which is why I lean a little bit more into land ramp. We've got Contagion Engine. This is a very good card with Clive's Saga side because you can just pay 4 to essentially gain 8 mana back when you double trigger his lore counters. So that's amazing. And then you can also just hit like whoever's got the biggest field and then just start proliferating their field to death. So next we've got Hedron Archive, Soul Ring, essentially just ways to ramp into Clive faster. Brass's Tunnel Grinder is really good. Sometimes it takes a long time to flip into the land side, but once you flip it into the land side, it is so busted. You just start essentially getting extra cards for every spell you cast, which is excuse me, which you want in this deck. Next we've got Expedition Map. This is very good because you can either get a snow-covered mountain or you get Valakut or Nykthos, which is what I'm always grabbing. A new card I've recently added, the Fire Crystal. This just seems like an auto-include, honestly. Like, it gives another 1 cost reduction, which is not worth the 4 mana value. But giving everything haste you control and also being able to create a token that's a copy of Clive, it's essentially like just giving me another commander in the 99 with also reducing the cost of my spells. So this card is just unbelievable. And then our last 2 artifacts, Glittering Stockpile, just a mana rock that gets better over time. And then Staff of Completion is a card that helps me die a lot faster, but also helps me win a lot faster because you can just pay 3 life, proliferate, get the 4 mana, use it towards untapping it, paying 3 life, using it again, and then flipping Clive. So it's just another enabler to using Clive's ability 2 times in 1 turn from the Saga side. So, and I've just learned that that's very strong. You could run the Throne of Geth, which a lot of people do run. I personally don't because it's only really good with Underworld Breach, and I don't want to always rely on having Underworld Breach out, so I'm just playing it safe and just not running it. You totally could. I'd argue it increases the ceiling of the deck for sure, but I'd rather just play safer. So onto enchantments, I run a decent amount. Curse of Opulence is just as good as Soul Ring sometimes, I feel like. Just, it deters attacks, and it also, I find on average, it will get me like 4 or 5 gold. So 1 mana ramp 4 is like incredible, while also essentially dealing damage to your opponents too. Shadow of the Goblin is a new one. It's just another, it's just a good 2-drop. A lot of like, I see some comments from my videos where like I could be adding 1-drops, but honestly my table is more on the slower side, so running a lot of 1-drops is pretty unfair to the table. So I do try to keep it limited to 2. 2 drops anyways, because it feels a little, I don't know, just on par with the table. Sometimes you just gotta play to your table. Like, for example, in my colorless deck, I don't run Echoes of Eternity anymore. Like, after like 3 wins with that card, the table hates it. So like, sure, I could play it, but like, what am I proving playing that, right? Like, they're just gonna hate every time I show up. They're gonna be like, oh great, Brandon's showing up with fucking Echoes of Eternity, you know? So you also just, you gain friends at the table too when you're like, I'm not here just to stomp you. Like, I'm here to, you know, hopefully win, but I don't want to have it guaranteed. I want to fight for it. So just playing the 2 drops back on that point just helps me play more in line. There and Back Again is a very slow card, but creating Smog, the thought of creating 14 treasures is very juicy, so I try to go for it. Count on Luck is such a good card. Came out this year. I can't believe it's like $1, like $2. It's just like Phyrexian Arena, which I get is slow, but being able to go 3 mana for 3 devotion is like one of the best rates in the deck. So very auto include. I run the Room, Charred Foyer, Warped Space. It's basically Count on Luck, but 1 more mana value. But it also lets you, if you unlock the other side, cast them for free. So you do get to get some value, and then it also counts towards devotion on both sides if you unlock them. But 10 mana is a lot for unlocking both sides, so I can see the argument for cutting it. City on Fire is one of the best cards in the deck. You can essentially convoke it and go 3 mana for 3 devotion, but just tripling damage is so good. Unfortunately, it doesn't have a clause where damage can't be prevented, so people can still fog you. But just oh my god, triple damage for 3 mana is so good. One of the best cards in the deck, Underworld Breach. If you want to play this at a lower power level, just cut Underworld Breach. But after playing it, like, it does feel repetitive where it's like, oh, my graveyard's full. I'm just going to go Mana Geyser, Mana Geyser, Mana Geyser, and then play my whole graveyard. Best card in the deck, for sure. Yeah, Power Balance. This card, I don't usually get a hit off of it, and I don't like revealing cards off the top, because my table's usually smart enough to play around what I'm trying to do. But 2 mana for 2 devotion is online with some of the best you can get, so I have to run it. Sulfuric Vortex is just here to get around life gain decks. Some people play life gain and they get over 100 life, and this is just a way to help me try to win the game, because otherwise I don't have a win condition. So yeah, gotta get their life down to 0 somehow. All right, and that's it for artifacts, enchantments. Let's move on to creatures. So starting with 2 drops, I don't know if it's Wily or Willy Goblin, but it's a 2 drop for 2 devotion, which is very good, and it makes a treasure, so it kind of ramps. It's temporary, but you know, the earlier you can get Clive out and just spit out your hand, the better you can play. So Humble Defector is like the best card draw in the deck. You draw so many cards, and everyone is always willing to make a deal to give it back to you. So later on, it does get kind of messy when people start just giving it around, but adding another layer of politics to the game is always fun. And I just think it's a friendly card that, you know, when I show up, people like seeing me because I always have Humble Defector. So yeah. Sunset Strike Master is like a rare mana dork in red, but you can also pay 3 mana and deal 6 damage to a creature with flying, which I actually use a lot. And then early on, yeah, it's just a 3/1 that makes a red, which is nice. Being able to ramp and make devotion is just broken, so if I can do that, I will throw it in. Next I run Inti, Seneschal of the Sun. This is just a good early engine. This deck has a lot of like 2 mana, 3 mana just engines that once I get them going, I'm just starting to draw a ton of cards and exile a ton of cards. And yeah, like if you don't have Mana Geyser, you can't play it all. So first world problems, but Mana Geyser kind of helps solve everything together. Last 2-drop I run is Party Thrasher, the Lizard Wizard. This guy is awesome. Giving my non-creature spells from exile evoke. There's a lot of ways to exile cards in the deck, as you can see, so being able to help pay for that without tapping my lands is amazing. The original commander, Annex, Hardened in the Forge. His power is equal to your devotion to red, so he kind of helps play into the devotion theme a little bit. Synergy. Whenever him or another creature, non-token creature dies, he makes a Satyr token. So it kind of helps me keep a board presence if my board gets wiped. I like to have one card in each deck that fuels the board just in case something happens. I run Odger Axonil just because I watch MTG Goldfish Commander. Honestly, I only run him just so if he dies, he just turns into a land and ramps me, but he also makes like Sulfuric Vortex a little stronger. And then I think there's a couple cards in the deck that like can burn my opponents for some damage, so, but he's a very cuttable card, and I just run him just to have him die and turn into a land, essentially. Treasonous Ogre is, like I said this about a few cards, but this is like one of the best cards in the deck. The problem though is you don't have enough life sometimes, it feels like you can literally just kill yourself or bring yourself down to 10, 15 life so fast. So you got to be very smart with it, but it's very rewarding. Like if you can use your mana at the right time and get ahead, like auto include for sure. Next I run Wild Magic Sorcerer just to help, just part of the Exile Matters package essentially. He just gives me more cascades. I was running Roiling. It's like the 2 mana enchantment that says if a player would cast a spell without paying, they take 5 damage. I had to cut that because it just counters all of that, so yeah. Enduring Courage is just auto include in red 2 devotion, and it gives everything haste, so it's just amazing for this deck. I ran Ashling as well. I had no idea the price on her shot up the way it did, but it makes sense with firebending, allowing my red mana to not fizzle out between phases. Also, like her triggers sometimes are hard to track. Like whenever you cast or copy an instant or sorcery spell, she does 3 different things. And all the time I'm like, oh, I missed my Ashling trigger, I missed that. Next creature, Heartless Hidetsugu. This guy is part of the combo with Basilisk Collar or anything that gives him lifelink, so that way you can just gain an insane amount of life, which you're going to be paying it all to the Treasonous Ogre for mana anyways because you're greedy. I am anyways. I run Plarg and Nasari. He's kind of like a mini Atali, so it just gives me some good card advantage. It plays from exile, and he also gives 2 devotion, so it's perfect. So the last few creatures we got here, we got Backdraft Hellkite. This guy is a very underrated card because he's only a couple bucks, not even, and when he attacks, he gives each of your instant and sorceries in your grave flashback. So he's kind of like a mini like Past in Flames, or it's kind of like a different way to play out of your graveyard in case you don't have Underworld Breach. Excuse me. But being able to like use Jessica's Will, get like 7 mana, and then attack, use it up, and then get your Jessica's Will again. Or I've had before with Ashling out where You just use the Jessica's Will, get 7 mana, go to combat, float it, attack with the Hellkite, and then you can reuse the Jessica's Will out of the graveyard again, and now you just double the mana. Or you can do that with like Mana Geyser too. Like, it's Backdraft, Hellkite adds so many cool lines of play to the deck. It's awesome. I run Nathalshi just to play into the Exile package. Just being able to double anything from Exile essentially is incredible. So yeah, playing into it, I run Aurora Phoenix only just because the artwork is kind of sweet, and I just think of it as card advantage and good flying blocking. So this card you could cut pretty easily, but it's just like a pet card of mine here. Hellkite Courser, essentially just playing your commander with 2 extra devotion without adding commander tax. So this card honestly has turned a lot of turns around for me where like you don't think you're doing much. You play Hellkite Courser, you go into Clive, discard and draw into a new hand, and then you get like something playable, and then just start going off from there. So he's pretty sick in the deck. I like him. Probably the shiniest card in my deck is the Capricious Hellraiser. I mostly run it just because I got the Oil Slick, but being able to hit. So I learned actually if you have less than 3 cards in your graveyard, you still exile from them. So if you have just a single card in there, you can actually hit what you want. So I managed to do that once with Jessica's Will, and I was able to play out of there. So he's a really cool card, but you could cut him for sure. And then the last cards I have, I've got 3 Planeswalkers and a Battle. So I run Koth, Fire of Resistance, because it searches for a basic mountain card, so you can get your snow-covered mountains. And you also can deal damage to stuff as well. So it's kind of multi-role. So I have a lot of like flying blocking in here just because of like the Planeswalkers. I also run Koth of the Hammer, which has led to some very explosive turns. So you can -2 him and add a red for each mountain you control. So he's essentially like a ritual. So if you've got 6 mountains out, you tap 4, cast him, you down tick 2 to add 6 mana, and now you've got the 6 mana, plus you've still got 2 untapped mountains for 8. So a lot of times he can just ramp you really fast, or like you do that and go into, like if you've got 5 mountains, you tap 4, cast Koth, have him come in, down tick 2 for 5 red, and you use that untapped red, then cast your Clive, and now you can discard, draw 4, assuming nothing else is on the field. So a lot of this deck is all built into just discarding your hand, drawing a new hand, and then seeing what you get, which is kind of the gamble with the deck. There's some times where I've discarded like playable hands and drawn like 5 mountains, and then you're just like, oh, that feels very bad. Last Planeswalker is Chandra, Torch of Defiance. I really only use the +1 to add double red, but a lot of times it feels worse than playing Koth. So I might actually cut her soon here. And then the last battle, or the last card, is Invasion of Kaldheim. So when it enters, you exile your hand and then draw that many cards, so kind of like a Clive. But you can play the cards exiled until your next turn. So essentially you just, if you exile Nathalshi, or if you have it out, you essentially just double everything that's in your hand, which is just incredible. So it's also card draw, which this deck has a lot of. But yeah, that's all of the deck. So I hope you guys enjoy.